Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thank you very much for choosing to watch my channel and join me as I explore the amazing, incredible, wide world of pens. And we see an excellent example. Yes, it's from Artcraft, my second pen from John Hubbart. This is the box that it comes in. Nice little foam there, and we see the pen. And of course, this is the card. We'll do some exploration, but let's take a look at the pen. I think you'll be quite surprised. I always appreciate a personal note when someone sends me a pen. And John's a great person to deal with, as well as being an engineer. So everybody who gets a pen from Artcraft gets a great letter with it. Describes the pen, talks about the do's and don'ts, and basically encourages you to interact with John. If you have any issues or whatever, contact him and he will do his best to remedy them. Artwork on the cap is just amazing. It is a Celtic dragon, and it is the year of the dragon in the Chinese year, coming up in a few weeks. And we can see that Artcraft is there on the barrel. Nice textured finish on both cap and barrel. The first pen I got from Artcraft was the Moonwalk pen, which was quite impressive. This is a little bit of a different style and design. The barrel unscrews in about 1.5 turns, and we see an excellent nib. Look at the feed. Yes, it's a Yovo nib. And it's customized. John's been buying his nibs from Pen Realm, which I found to be an excellent source. They have a lot of nibs for you to purchase. So one thing I think it's nice here is at the bottom of the nib is the B for broad and Yovo. So it's an interesting identification, which is not typical of Yovo nibs. I think it's good to have that there. And it is a broad nib, and it is nice and coated black. Nice beefy section. The threads are there at the bottom, which really don't interfere at all with holding the pen. It fits great in the hand as is. Feels light, very easy to maneuver. And if you'd like, you can put the cap on the end of the barrel. I wouldn't force it on, but it does sit there nicely and fairly secure. The cap is light like the pen is light, so it doesn't interfere, and you can line up that design with Artcraft and the nib. I think we need to look at this amazing detail of the dragon on the cap. Just very nice. Celtic dragon. I have to admit I wasn't much aware of this design of the dragon, but there's that nice red rose that he's looking at with some green leaves. Beautiful design. The artist, Mr. Dreyer, does a lot of Celtic designs like this. Check out his website. Here's a link in my description. And here's some examples from his website. Interesting interpretations of some amazing artwork. Love it. So now's time for the interview with John Hubbart. It's great to listen to John. It's good to understand what went on to make this pen, this Celtic dragon pen, or the Chinese dragon pen, or other pens that John makes. I just enjoy talking to a creative engineer like John is, and one of the great contributors to this wide world of pens that we enjoy. Take it away, John.
I'm pretty good, all things considered. It's like the guy that jumped off the Empire State Building, and he's jumps off the 92nd floor up there, and he's driving down beside the building, and somebody on about the 60th floor opens the window and says, "How's it going?" He says, "So far, so good." Old joke. Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be back with you again. And thanks for the opportunity to describe how my dragon pens came about. There actually are two of them. You have one, probably my favorite of the two. But for some time, I don't know, I got into this idea of a dragon, and I was doing this pen here, which is a Chinese style dragon. And I kept on fooling with it for a while. And suddenly I realized, just by messing around on the internet, that starting on February the 10th of this year is the year of the dragon in the Chinese calendar. And I said, well, maybe I ought to finish up this dragon idea and have a pen that could be for sale in the year of the dragon. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And about that time, I was on Facebook fooling around, and a friend of mine down in Birmingham, Alabama — I'm in Huntsville, about 90 miles north, down in Birmingham — posted a picture of something he was doing, and on the wall behind him, which had nothing to do with the posting, was this very interesting bit of artwork. So I asked him about it, and he said, oh, it's from this guy over near Atlanta. And so I searched and found Kevin Dyer, who does Celtic style art. And the piece of art that I found there was this Celtic dragon, which is a very interesting design, because it's a European style dragon. They're very much more like gargoyles, I guess you'd have to say, where the Chinese style dragons are more like bodied snakes with big heads and such. So they're a very different physical design. And I talked with Kevin, and I said, Kevin, if I could squeeze that design down — and it was huge, what he had was 2 feet tall — I said, if I can squeeze that down onto a fountain pen, could I get a license from you to use your work? And he said, why, sure. So we've got a deal, and every time I sell one of these pens, Kevin gets a little kickback on it. And that, but the hard part was actually squeezing that design down to the point that it could actually practically be reproduced on the cap of a pen. That took a few tries, as you might imagine. And but we finally got it there. We just had to simplify it a little bit here and there. And so basically that design is imprinted into the cap, and then I fill the imprint with some stuff called Rub and Buff, which is a gold leaf material. And then after that, of course, we apply, as I've done with all of my pens, we apply a clear ceramic, the brand is Cerakote, which is really well known, ceramic coating. And here's an example of the dragon pen. It's hard to do this and look in the camera at the same time. The dragon pens, there we go. This one has Cerakote and this one doesn't. And if you can see that, you can see that this one has a slightly shiny finish and this one's rather dull. And so I've found that applying the Cerakote not only protects the pen, because nothing will stain it or scratch it or anything. It is tough stuff once it's dry. It also causes the gold in the design to pop out. I'll tell you one other thing about this design. When you look at it carefully, you'll see that there's a rose here on the side, yep, and that the dragon is looking at the rose. And the way Kevin explained it to me was that in the European tradition, the dragon is a very passionate creature. They're fierce, but they're mainly defending their own. They're defending their homes and so on like that with a great deal of passion. And of course, a rose is a symbol of love. And so the combination of the dragon and the rose represents passionate love. And so there's the story of the cap of this pen. And I'd managed to get both the Chinese version and the Celtic version done in time for the Year of the Dragon. So that's kind of how it all came about. And, you know, making fountain pens has been, for me, as much of an engineering problem or challenge as the design aspect, you know. It really has. A piano pen, I didn't have a clip on it. And some people said, well, can you do a pocket clip? Well, I thought a pocket clip on it was going to be genuinely ugly, but it is functional. And so learning how to make a clip and attach it, and it's a structural problem. Is you got forces involved here that aren't there any other way, and but I finally figured it out, and I've offered it with a clip now, and guess what? Only one person has wanted a clip now after all that trouble, and instead I've been providing the nice slit these pen sleeves from Rickshaw.
Yep.
I've been providing them with the piano pen, and so they like that. I mean, it's a great way to carry a pen around. It protects it and such. So anyhow, but now I know how to do a clip if I ever have to do one again. That has been one of the delights of this whole thing is all the neat people I have met and worked with, and pen people just seem to be nice, just good. So that was an engineering challenge, but it also, you had to be sure you could get the part again. I just was going to say, I have a team of people. I'm a one-man band here, but I have about a half a dozen people that do various parts of this process. And one of them is a young lady who lives now. She used to live about 20 miles from me here, but now she lives in Vancouver, British Columbia, and professionally does digital animation. But I can still send her a file, and she will apply designs like this to it for me and then send them back. So this is a transcontinental company now, I guess you'd have to say. Yeah, I have some prejudices about pens, and one is that the nib has to be good. And I have found that the Jowo, or however you choose to pronounce it, German nibs, they come out of the box really good, but then the people that I get them from tune them before they mail them to me. So I'm practically guaranteed of a very smooth writing nib, whether it's the steel nib or their 14K nib, either way. I like a fairly large gripping section. This one, to be honest, is about exactly the same as Mont Blanc 149, which is another favorite pen of mine. And the other thing I don't like is I don't like to have threads underneath my fingertips as I'm holding the pen. So I just don't like the feel of fine threads or sudden step downs from the barrel to the grip. So these pens all have a very slight step down, and the threads are at the tip of the gripping section right next to the nib, which gets them out of the way of your fingers. So those are just some of the things I like to incorporate into any of the pens I do. It does take a lot of false starts, I'll put it that way, to get everything just right. Going through the side, drawing one up in the computer, and then add designs to it, and then create, reproducing that in a physical thing. And sometimes when you get it in your hand, it's just not right. It looked great on the computer screen and all that, but it just didn't come out right. So there's a trial and error process as well as the engineering aspect. So I'm looking at doing a smaller pen. You can compare that to one of the Dragon pens. You can see it's a smaller diameter, and I haven't decided what the design on the outside will be. This one was more engineering prototype to get the insides of it right. But I'm kind of working on something there, and I'm considering sort of an Art Deco design for it. If I can get to that. I kind of like Art Deco, and I haven't tried anything of that nature. So that's probably where I'm heading next. That one would be probably a little lower priced too. I love these Rickshaw pen sleeves. Yep. And Mark, that's another great guy. Mark Dwight, that runs Rickshaw, is the most responsive person to work with. I've got to go to San Francisco one day and see how he does this stuff. It's digitally printed, and the sewing machines must be digital too, because he turns these things out in a day. I'll order 10 of them, and he'll say, okay, I'll have them in the mail tomorrow. And I know he doesn't have them on the shelf because he has too many to have inventory too many varieties. Well, anyhow, I've got some of these dragon-themed pen sleeves that I've not been providing with the pens just because I decided not to. Anybody who contacts me and orders a dragon pen, either Chinese or Celtic, as I saw your review on Chris Rapp, I'll give them a 10% discount. Okay. Well, thank you, Chris. Enjoyed it as always. I'll be back.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Celtic Dragon pen has very classic components. You have your cap, nicely engraved. You have a beefy section, a barrel, a nib unit, and a converter. These are international standards, so it gives you lots of options. And if we look at this nib unit, it's very nice. It should be recognizable, especially when we look at the feed. Yes, it's a Yovo. I love the design work done on the black nib. I think it really goes well with the pen. So here's a good comparison between the Artcraft Celtic Dragon and the Moonwalk pen. The Moonwalk pen is larger, longer, a little bit more girthy, and has a more three-dimensional look to the design. Both pens are quite interesting works of art, unique, and a pen, if you owned it, would be probably the only one who knew about the pen. Makes a good conversation piece. So what ink to use? This ink called out to me. Haven't used it much recently. Perfect combo, black ink with some gold glitter. Here's what it looks like on the paper towel. Definitely some gold glitter there. It should work well in the pen. And that broad Yovo nib will lay down a nice line, I expect. So I have a few broad number 6 nibs, some Yovo, some Bach. This one's as good as any. It is incredibly smooth, lays down an amazing consistent line. It's fairly wet, but not overly wet. It feels great on all papers, and it works well with this Mali ink from China. So I think the glitter in this ink is perfect. It's a very, very fine glitter, and it just adds a little bit of dimension to the writing. Catch it at a certain angle, you see more. At a certain angle, you see none. I like the ink a lot. So in the Moonwalk pen is also a broad Yovo nib from Franklin Christoph, and it works also well. Not quite as wide as the one in the Dragon pen, but as we know, these nibs mass-produced, different batch numbers are going to vary slightly in how they write and how they look on paper, and also the ink is a little different. It's a Chinese ink in here, but it's more in the gray side and not the black side, but it does have some glitter in it. I enjoyed both these pens to write with. The nibs are great. And I think PenRealm did a wonderful job tuning this nib that is in the Dragon pen. I think it's interesting to compare the two inks. The ink in the Moonwalk pen definitely has more glitter in it. And hopefully that's coming across as you look at the writing from the two pens. So, how big is the Celtic Dragon pen? Well, here we have 4 pens we're comparing it to. The M800, slightly longer. Girth is bigger. The All-Star, Lamy, and a Polite Metropolitan. Let's pop those caps and look at the business end. So as we take a close-up look here of the sections and nibs, couldn't be any more different. 4 completely different nibs. Number 6 Yovo, a little bit bigger than a number 6 on the M800, but of course 18 karat gold. This is a vintage 800. This tiny nib on the Lamy and a tiny nib on the Pilot. But I really do think that this design here, the look of the nib, certainly looks great. Pelican M800 is just a classic. So this video has gotten a little bit longer than I usually do, but I think the interview with John Hubbart was just phenomenal. I mean, I condensed down almost 2 hours into about 12 minutes. Hopefully you appreciate that. And John has a great stories to tell, and I think he really gives us some insights into pens from a maker of pens and maker of interesting pens like the one we have here. So let's take a look at some dimensions. So as you probably gather, I do really like this pen. It's extremely different. There's a lot of people discussing how the pens are the same, or they all copy each other, or things of that nature. That cannot be said of any pens that John Hubbart makes for certain. Feels great in the hand. Cap comes off relatively quickly. That nice beefy section, which we talked about, and the fact that John likes beefy section, so he's going to make a pen with a beefy section. You got to admire that. Not trying to appeal to the masses, but trying to make a pen that he would love to use, and hopefully the people who buy the pen also love to use it. So I hope I've gathered some interest in the pen. Support a local pen maker, an artist, and an engineer. What a combo. So let's do some final writing and call it a wrap. Yes, I enjoy the pen, and I like having a pen that certainly is different looking than any other pen I have, and also works extremely well as a writing instrument. Kudos to Artcraft and John Hubbart. So with that, we're coming to the conclusion. I hope this video finds everyone safe, healthy, and happy. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, great life. Enjoy every moment to its fullest. So this is the end. And we will say bye. Wow. I'm going to enjoy writing with this pen. Yep, got to keep the nib on paper.